Hello everyone. Hi Vaibhav. So a
Hello.
very warm welcome to all our viewers. I'm Yash Kapasi, second year BBA student at SPJ School of Global Management, and I'm the president of the Eco Youth Club. So today we are hosting a webinar on the topic of Safe Soil Movement. This is possible because of a collaborative effort of SPJ School of Global Management, Eco Youth Club, and Isha Homeschool students. And our goal is to spread awareness about the Safe Soil movement that focuses on the issue of soil crisis. So before starting with the and the club, SPN School of Global Management is an Australian business school that provides modern, relevant, and practical global business education. With campuses in dynamic cities of Dubai, Mumbai, Singapore, and Sydney, SPGN is world renowned for offering multi city undergraduate and postgraduate programs. And the Eco Youth Club is an initiative that aims to spread awareness about the world issues that affect us and how we as students can create an impact. It was started in 2019, January 2019, in Singapore by Bhavish Advani, who is the founder of the club, and it is a student-driven sustainability and a CSR club. And its main objective is to give back to the society. So now I invite Vaibhav, who will be introducing Isha Homeschool, and will talk a little bit about the CSR movement.
Thank you, Yash. We'd like to start off by thanking SP Jain for making this possible. Isha Homeschool is an international residential school located in Coimbatore, Tamil Nadu, um, and it is under the Isha Foundation. So, what is Save Soil? Save Soil is a global movement launched by Sadhguru, who is a humanitarian and visionary. This movement aims to address the soil crisis by bringing together people from all around the world to stand up for soil health. And this aims to support leaders of all nations to institute national policies and actions towards soil organic matter, towards increasing the organic content in cultivable soil. So, that is a brief introduction of what Save Soil is as a movement. So, to give you a better picture, to give you an elaborate idea of what the problem is, what its impacts are, and what really is the solution, what can we do, you and me, I'd like to invite Ishan and Ritvika. So, Yash, would you like to?
Okay, so hello everyone. And just before I start, I'd like to take some time to thank SB Jain for giving us this opportunity to present about this movement. And so my name is Ritvika, and I'm in class 12.
And I'm Ashan, and I'm in 11th grade.
Yeah, so we'll be presenting today about this movement. So as we all know, global warming is increasing and wildlife is also going extinct. And water scarcity is also spreading. But there's a bigger and underlying problem. Soil itself is going extinct. And you might wonder, how can soil run out, right? So the thing is, when soil has organic content, it's called soil. But when it does not have organic content, it's called sand. And when sand has organic content, it's called soil. So to sustain agriculture, a minimum organic carbon in soil should be 3%. And actually, in European agricultural nations, 75 to 85% of soil has less than 2% of carbon. That means 75 to 85% of the soil is sand. So this is not just in Europe. We also have in the US, they've lost 50% of their topsoil. And coming to India, 62% of India has less than 0.5% of its organic carbon. This means that 62% of India's soil is degraded. So this is not just in certain areas, it's a global issue. As I've mentioned about America and India and Europe, even in Africa, Africa is on the verge of losing two-thirds of their arable land. And in Middle East also, 73% of Middle Eastern croplands are degraded. So, the UN Food and Agriculture Organization has released a fact that 52% of the world's agricultural soils are already degraded. And the UN Environment has said that 23 hectares of cropland are desertified every minute. This is equivalent to 30 football fields. And UN also has said that we have soil left only for another 60 years, which means that we only have harvests for another 60 years. So now we'll watch a video on how soil is very important to us.
block of life. Everything alive is made of it, even us. The problem and the solution are simply a matter of balance. Let's step back and look at the 5 pools where carbon is stored on planet Earth. Starting about 500 million years ago, when plants first appeared on land, carbon began to cycle in an amazing balance between these pools, a balance that allowed for life as we know it to evolve. Then one life form, that would be us, figured out how to extract carbon from the fossil pool, which was pretty much a timeout zone for carbon. We've been burning it for energy, putting into play, and disrupting that balance. The way we manage land and do agriculture is moving even more carbon into the atmosphere. Specifically, we've moved 880 billion tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, which is heating up the planet and destabilizing our climate. The oceans have absorbed a lot of this excess carbon, throwing off the ocean's balance, resulting in ocean acidification and accelerating a mass extinction of sea life. So in order to save life as we know it, of course we need to stop burning fossil carbon. The big question is, where do we put this excess carbon to get the cycle back in balance? The good news is that the answer is literally right under our feet. It's the soil. Plants, using sunlight and water, naturally perform photosynthesis. They pull carbon in from the air and turn it into carbohydrates, sugars. Then they pump some of these sugars down through the roots to feed microorganisms who use that carbon to build healthy soil. Voila, carbon moved. The plants pump it in and the soil stores it. Nature's living technology is amazing. Unlike more carbon in the atmosphere, more carbon in the ground is good for us. It makes healthy soil, which is nutrient rich and full of life and holds way more water. This means more nutritious food and crops that are more resilient in the face of drought. That's good news for farmers, families, and everyone who eats. Remember this, the way we grow our food, fiber, and fuel either puts carbon up into our atmosphere or pulls it down into the ground. The regeneration of soil is the task of our generation. Our health, the health of our soils, and the health of our planet are one and the same. If you're
So now I would like to talk about how the soil crisis is impacting us and what are the repercussions that we are facing and the worst of possibilities that we could face if we let this continue. So, I mean, it goes without saying that we are still experiencing a growth in our population globally, but it's estimated that with unhealthy soils, we'll be producing lesser food than what we need to sustain a population. Our populations are expected by 2050 to grow up to 9 billion people, and it is also predicted by 2050 we'll be producing 40% less food. So you can imagine the consequences of having less food, and when there's 9 billion people, 40% less food. What ends up happening is people forget where they come from, what they do, their civil manners, and everything will fall down and break into chaos simply because people are hungry and they need food. And UN organizations are also predicting that there are going to be civil wars over food. This is not a power struggle that groups of people are fighting over. People will be fighting over basic necessities like food, simply because our soils are unhealthy at this point in time. So, as I mentioned before about the food crisis that could happen in the future if we do not address this issue right now, it's because 95% of humanity's food comes from soil. And 800 million people are already suffering from hunger. So, we're going to further exacerbate this problem if we do not address it right now. Now, moving on to another implication of this issue is climate change. So, as you've seen in a video before, soils store carbon in a very uh, stable form in them, and degraded soils, which usually happens through intensive farming or direct exposure to sunlight, ends up releasing these stable forms of carbon that is stored in them into the atmosphere. So degraded soils can release 850 billion tons of CO2, which is equal to the last 30 years of humanity's emissions. Scientists also warn that soil degradation is a climate change time bomb. Now, moving on to the third implication, which is water scarcity. Uh, I mean, right now, I'm in Mumbai, and this is also the summer's coming in, and we're already experiencing water shortages here and there. Summer's not here yet in its full prime, but two-thirds of the world's population experience severe water scarcity at least 1 month every year. And it is estimated that by 2040, roughly 1 in 4 children worldwide will be living in areas of high water stress. The fourth implication is that since 87% of all life depends on soil, and you may be wondering about such a massive number of amount of life that depends on soil, it is because in soil there's a plethora of microbes and other small animals that live in that ecosystem and thrive in it. And the number is so huge, it exceeds more than the numbers that who are terrestrial or aquatic or aerial in nature. And so if our soil gets degraded, there's going to be a mass extinction of these subspecies of animals and microorganisms that live in the soil below. And the fifth implication is something which is not very apparent to the naked eye. This is not something that we directly see the effects of, but somehow or the other, we may have thought about what's been happening with our systems lately. So before I jump in and explain what's happening, so here's a quiz for you guys. You can drop it in the comment section. How many oranges should you eat today to get the same nutritional value of an orange in the 1920s? The first option is 8. The second option is 4. The third option is 3. And the fourth option is 2. So just take a random guess of how many oranges you need to eat today if you need to get the same amount of nutritional value back in the 1920s, like during the times of our grandfathers. All right. Some people have been saying 4. Yeah, I see a couple of 3s popping up. No. Maybe surprisingly or not surprisingly, today, if we have to get the same amount of vitamin A as our grandparents got back in the day, we need to eat 8 oranges. And I do not think eating 8 oranges when you're having breakfast is a practical thing to do. It's not at all practical. And this is happening because unhealthy soils are unable to assimilate the nutrients from the soil and then put it back into the crops that we're growing. As you've watched the video before, I think that explains the thing a bit better. And I won't delve into it right now. But for now, there's been a 60% drop in protein in Indian vegetables and an 87% drop in mineral nutrients in US vegetables. This is because our soils are getting degraded, and these degraded soils are unable to assimilate the nutrients, like I mentioned before, and put it back into the plant and make it grow into a healthy one. And globally, 2 billion people suffer from nutrition deficiency. I think personally, even I had a couple of deficiencies, such as B12 and then vitamin D. And I'm pretty sure all of us know a lot of people or ourselves who have some sort of nutrition deficiency. And today we're taking a lot of supplements and pills to compensate for that. I think the last implication is something that hits closer home, is about the loss of livelihood, especially coming from India, where we have seen over the past few years, due to successive crop failures or droughts or unsuitable conditions for growing crops, a lot of farmers have been committing suicide. Unfortunately, it's a very unfortunate event, simply out of frustration that the land doesn't give them back what they sow. And the loss of life, and for any growing population, as I mentioned before, we cannot forget that at the end of the day, this is more than a livelihood. This is what puts everything, sets everything else rolling, and is the reason why everything else is happening. The soil extinction is a meta problem, and it underlies food crisis, nutritional crisis, water scarcity, mass extinction, climate change, and farmer suicides. But at the same time, having said that, soil extinction, or else known as desertification, if that's a term that most of you will be familiar with, it is also the answer to these very problems if we do solve it. So now I'll hand it over to Ritika, who will talk about what is the solution to help save our soil.
Okay, so I just wanted to mention that audience can participate in the chat and comment about anything. And okay, so what is the solution? Now we've talked about the problems and what issues are going on. What can we do about these issues? So saving our soil will essentially save our earth. So what we can do is we can bring our land under vegetation and shade. This means by planting trees and different plants, and this plant litter will increase the soil organic matter in our soil. So doing this can neutralize humanity's CO2 emissions. And this, as we watched in the video earlier, increasing the organic content in our soil will retain the carbon, the soil will retain the carbon, and instead of releasing it into the air, which will help in climate change. It will also eliminate world hunger by feeding 2 billion more people. As Ishan has mentioned, our population is going to grow to 9 billion by 2050. So improving soil carbon raises crop production by 20 to 40%, which is a huge amount. We can also eliminate water scarcity for 600 million people, as increasing the organic content in our soil will increase the soil water reserves by 37 trillion liters. And essentially, it will save 87% of life on Earth, as 87% of the life on Earth depends on the biggest ecosystem on Earth, which is soil. So we can also eliminate global poverty in rural areas, because 75% of the world's poor rely on the agricultural sector. So if the soil is good, then they can grow their crops as well. So the United Nations has released 17 SDGs, which are Sustainable Development Goals, and this Save Soil movement addresses 12 of them. So just go ahead and read through them.
So now that we've talked about what the problem is, and now we're going to talk about the movement that we have brought to you today. And so it's called Conscious Planet. And for us who are involved in this, it seems like it is the way forward. So Conscious Planet is the overarching banner, and Safe Soil is the movement which is being driven under that banner. And it is a global movement to initiate a conscious approach to our soil and our planet. So what does Safe Soil aim to do at the end of the day? And I mean, growing up since I'm a Gen Z and growing up in the early 2010s, since when I was a kid, I've been hearing about the issues, the environmental issues that have been happening, that global warming, the temperature's been going up, sea levels are rising. And I've always felt like, okay, so what can I do about this? And the answer was nothing much, apart from making a few personal choices, maybe going plastic free, or maybe just using the bike instead of uh, using a cab. But at the end of the day, it's not something that, on an individual level, there's only so much that we can do, because unless there is a mandate for people to follow the rules, people usually wouldn't. Because these things are, sometimes it may not be convenient for us. So Safe Soil aims to increase the organic content in the soil to a minimum of 3%. And to effect this change, we are advocating for policies across all nations towards soil restoration. So soil policies will be there in the manifestos of political parties that uh, people want to vote and elect to power, or maybe if it's not, maybe if it's not a democratic process in the country, obviously the people's voice is still there. And I'm sure, and from the responses that we've been getting or since the movement started on March 21st, governments across political spectrums and ideologies and the way that they are advocating for safe soil policies and extending their support to us. And you may be asking why a minimum of 3%? Because 3% is the minimum percentage of organic carbon content that needs to be there in soil to help sustain agriculture and life in it. And meanwhile, while we are advocating for policy changes, we are seeking to raise awareness amongst 3.5 billion people to garner their support for these policies, like I mentioned before. And 3.5 billion people, well, because that forms 60% of the world's electorate of the voting population. So just to give you an example of how government policies have been successful and brought about environmental change that we wish to see. So in 1975, a couple of scientists came along and they found out that there was a small leak in the ozone layer above Antarctica, and looking out for what was the cause for it. And they saw that it was CFCs. CFCs is something that was present in refrigerants and aerosol cans. And when scientists across the world producing research and publishing journals and talking about how CFCs are not good for the ozone layer and how it depletes them, governments across the world came together, and within a couple of years, the Montreal Protocol was formed, and then 197 countries sought to ban the usage of CFCs. And this is all because people, not only scientists, but people, regular people, raised their voices and they said what they feel should be done. And active policy changes must be made to bring about something. Otherwise, I'm pretty sure industries would have still continued to use CFCs if it wasn't mandated that they must not be used. So, by having a mandate, by having solid policies, we can bring about serious change. And this is not something like you simply see on social media where people are just talking about it. This is real action we're doing on the ground. And I think that's what sets us apart from other movements. Obviously, we do appreciate all the other movements that and initiatives that are being taken by people across. But this really helps it concretize all the efforts and make it successful. So, without further ado, I'll be talking about the man himself who is spearheading this movement. Despite the fact that he wishes to say explicitly say that this movement is not about him and it is about people who are involved in this, the entire group and people, I like to take some time out to talk about him because he's 65 and he has started an artist journey of 30,000 kilometers from London, and he'll be reaching India in late June. Right now, Sadhguru, who is a humanitarian and a visionary, he is in Brussels, and with his 30,000 kilometer journey, he'll be meeting global leaders, influencers, citizens, and the elected representatives to raise awareness about the issue of soil health and garner people's support for this movement. So he's been honored. The movement started on March 21st, and it's going to be a 100 days journey. He'll be covering roughly 26 nations, depending on the geopolitical situations over there, and the ride will be a total of 30,000 kilometers. So he started in London, Right now, he's in Brussels, and in a few weeks, he intends to enter Middle East, and then he'll be ending the ride in India. So a little more about Sadhguru. He's a world-renowned speaker, and he's been to various international agencies and forums, such as World Economic Forum, United Nations, and also a keynote speaker at TED, Google, Microsoft, Global Citizen Life, MIT, to name a few. So here are a few glimpses of Sadhguru's past interactions over the years. Last year, he was in America too, and these are some of the interactions that he's had with celebrities, global leaders, and influencers from all walks of life. Maybe you can identify a few of them. Please feel free to drop in the chat box who you can identify. So this is the rough Safe Soil journey timeline. Right now, we're in April, and we're in the process of mobilizing volunteers for this movement. And the journey will be entering Middle East in May. And by late June, Sadhguru will be concluding the movement at the Kaveri River. So here are a few eminent Safe Soil supporters who have been very vocal about this movement lately. And these are just to name a few. This is not the entire list because the list keeps growing every single day as the movement has gained some more momentum right now. So you can see His Holiness the Dalai Lama. We have Tom Brady. We have Juhi Chawla. We have J. Cole, Trevor Noah, Klaus Schwab. He is the chairman of the World Economic Forum. Tony Robbins is a well-known philanthropist and a motivation speaker. So here are a few eminent executive leaders from global agencies, and Jane Goodall, who is a very famous conservationist. So here's their 2 cents on the movement. So Abraham Thiaw, he's the executive secretary of United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification. Jane Goodall, like I've mentioned before, she is a very well-known primatologist. And Klaus Schwab is the chairman of the World Economic Forum. So we already have partnerships with Global Citizen Forum, UNEP, WFP, and Partnerships for Change. UNEP and WFP, they took some time to come on board, but now finally they're on board, and World Economic Forum has also extended their support to us. So now here's an 8-minute video about Sadhguru talking about the movement and what it means for us and what can we do to help spread the message and bring about the lasting policy changes.
This is an opportunity we have that do we want to become a part of the problem or do we want to become a part of the solution? This is the opportunity in every given situation, especially now with the biodiversity and ecological issues that we are facing, the soil degeneration we are facing. This is the thing. But Sadhguru, what shall I do? What shall I do? Shall I roll up my sleeves and fix my garden? That's very cute. But that's not a solution. You must do that because it'll give you some sense of what it is. But that is not a solution. Right now the problem has reached such a place, individual action is not going to be the solution. Individual action is wonderful, that is an expression of who you are, but that is not a solution. Solution can only happen if the solution gets enshrined in the policy of every nation on the planet. Otherwise, solution will not happen. We'll only talk about it. So don't take this into, if I can't fix my garden, can I fix the world's soil? That is not the way to look at it. Right now, for policy change to happen, policy is being drafted at various levels, scientists have worked on it, we have developed a policy document for every nation based on its latitudinal position. There are 14 types of soil that we have identified for the soil type, the economic conditions of that given nation and the agricultural traditions of that nation, because even if you have all the science that you want, without addressing the agricultural traditions of that land, you cannot change things just like that. So based on this, we produce some basic policy towards all nations separately, but this has to become enshrined in the policy as it is required for the given condition, for the given nation. Because we are not writing the policy for the nation, we are only writing the recommendation, direction. Rest of the policy has to be written by the sovereign nations, but the simple thing is this, that agricultural lands must have 3 to 6% organic content. This must happen initially by incentives, by encouragement, by nudge. If things don't work and if things really get bad, then it has to become punitive and mandatory at some point. Because these things have happened to urban land, isn't it? There was a time you could build your house whichever way you want, but today if you want to build, you have to allow some space. If you build more than what you should, they will come and demolish your house, yes or no? But such a law does not exist for agricultural lands anywhere in the world. If you have 10 acres of land, you can plow every inch of it, turn it into a desert in 10–15 years' time. Nobody there to ask you, why have you done this? You may own the land. As long as you live, you may own the land, but the soil is not our property. It's a legacy that's come to us from previous generations. In its living condition, we must pass it on to the next generation. That is a fundamental responsibility. If we take away the basic source of life for future generations, in my thought and emotion, it feels like it's a crime against humanity. Every day for next 100 days, if you invest just 10 to 15 minutes of your time in a day, you can make this happen. This is the first time. This is the first time in the history of humanity that such tools are available to us. Never before was this possible. Even 50 years ago, this was not possible. Yes or no? Today we have these technologies, we have these possibilities. When we are able to do it, if we don't do it, we are a disaster, isn't it? My idea of a disastrous life is this: if what we cannot do, if we do not do, no problem. What to do, we cannot do. What we can do, if we do not do, we are a disaster. I want to make sure neither me nor you are such a disaster that we did not do what we can do. I want all of you, there is a training, I think, on our website where we are running a webinar, where you can train yourself to speak for 1 minute like you are a soil scientist. Even I am doing it. Hello? For at least 1 minute, you must be able to speak with some sense of authority about the soil and its condition and where it should go. Educate yourself to that extent and make sure you speak. Wherever you meet, you speak. Whatever messages you send, you close with save soil. If you want to tell somebody, I love you, say, save soil, because definitely it's a more committed way of expressing your love for people, especially for children. If you love them, you must save soil, otherwise you're putting them in a place where no life should be, you know. So this process of what we are trying to do is to move 3 to 4 billion people, not in protest, in joy, that this is our privilege. As a generation, we turn back from the brink. We didn't fall over, we turned back. When such a privilege is there, you must handle this joyfully. This is not an angry protest, this is not a movement against somebody, this is for everybody. This is for life. It's very important you take this attitude. It doesn't matter, somebody will say this, that. All of you should understand, because I hear many of the volunteers, we must promote organic agriculture, regenerative agriculture. Do not say this. Let the farmer decide what kind of agriculture he wants to do. It's not your business to tell him that. Your business is to see that the necessary policies happen in the world by exercising the strength of your voice in a given country, to see that policy changes happen. If it happens in a few major countries, it'll happen everywhere. As I said, the CARICOM countries and now the Commonwealth nations and India, which is almost 1.3 billion people, all these are going towards it. If a few major nations go for it, rest will anyway go for it. Above all, I am addressing the UNCCD COP15 in Ivory Coast in the month of May. I'm taking a 2-day break in Arabia and going to Ivory Coast to address this. 170 nations are participating in this, their representatives will be there. So we are quite confident we will get a full-on yes from these 170 nations. But it is important we move these people on the ground. It's the easiest thing to do because they're all on the Facebook, Instagram, this TikTok, that, this. Get there, do whatever you have to do, speak if you can, sing if you can, do a jig if you can, do whatever. Hello? Do whatever. Make a fool of yourself if you have to, but let's make it happen.
Okay, so now we talked about how these supporters are participating in the movement. Now, what can you do as an individual? How can you participate in this movement? Well, all of us have social media, right? So all of us can use this platform and can use these handles to spread awareness to the people who don't know about this movement and about this issue. And now we'll play you the Save Soil music video.
La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. This very body is soil. My body, your body, everybody is just soil body. Soil body. The magic of soil is it turns death into life. Depleted soils will not quench the fire of hunger. Unquenched hunger can burn the very world. This is a generational responsibility. Save soil. Let's make it happen.
So as you've seen in the music video, you can use this song to dance the jig, which you've seen that many people have danced in the music video, and you can post it on Instagram as reels. Many people have been doing this, and they put it on their stories as well. And another way that you can participate in this movement is you can either express your concern for this movement as poetry or as an art piece, and you can actually display it on a page that's been created called the Global Exhibition page. So this is the exhibition page where there are a lot of people who have come and who have either put art pieces or pictures and videos and poems, or they've created pictures also. So this link will be posted in the chat so you guys can refer to it later. Okay, so you can also follow Conscious Planet on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We have handles on all three platforms. And please do go and see what Sadhguru is doing right now. He's currently in Belgium on his journey. And there are many updates that will be put up on these platforms also. So please do go check it out.
And please feel free to retweet tweets about Safe Soil. And if you're posting any material online, just make sure to use hashtag Safe Soil so that the post gets more engagement online. And as we mentioned before, the form of expression can be anything. It can be a dance. It can be just simply you talking about it. It can be you're writing up a poetry or doing an art or like drawing up something. And if you wish to get more engagement, you can go to the exhibition page. The link, which will be shared after in the chat box, you can go to the exhibition page and fill in the details, and then it will be visible and uploaded on the exhibition page. So it goes without saying that in today's world, social media is quintessential. And to give you an example, one of the major movements that we've seen gain a lot of traction simply on social media is the Black Lives Matter movement back in 2020. The incident happened in America, and it is very heavily involved with American politics, to be strictly speaking. But it resonated with a lot of people simply because of social media. Like people from India, Africa, Europe, Australia, they were all talking about systemic racism on their social media profiles, even though this is an incident that happened, like I mentioned before, in America and is politically and geographically more or less constrained over there in terms of the exact incident that happened. So this is the power of social media, and 4.5 billion people today have access to social media and use it on a regular basis. So the more we amplify our messages, the more retweets we do, the more stories we put up, the more shares we do, the algorithm itself pushes these posts forward for more engagement because they see a lot of people engaging with this. So it is an earnest request, and that please go ahead, feel free to create any kind of content about Safe Soil and put it on your social media pages. And now we'll be opening up the floor for the panel discussion. So I'd like to invite the other speakers from SP Jain and the moderators too. Over to you, Yash.
Yeah, we have a question here, so you can answer that. So someone asked, like you mentioned, that it is more than a social media campaign where you have seen little groundwork. So can you just touch upon that a little bit
Sure,
before
sure,
we
sure.
start with the panel discussion?
So, firstly, thank you for your engagement on the chat. We really appreciate it. So, as you saw with what Ishan and Ritika said, This movement is a global movement currently, and it is backed by all the UN agencies, some of the biggest organizations in the world. And so there is that level of credibility, if you understand it like that. So we have done, as part of various other environmental campaigns over the past 2 decades almost, or about 3 decades, we've done a lot of groundwork in India, in different parts of India, towards environmental conservation in various ways. And it is with this backing that we come at a global stage and we want to save soil globally. So that, I hope that answers your question. This is not a baseless thing. We've really thought this through, and that is why the support we're getting is what it is.
Just to add on to what Vaibhav just said right now. So, as you mentioned, we started to lay the groundwork for all of these ecological movements, finally culminating in Conscious Planet over 2 decades ago, with something called Project Green Hands, where the surrounding area in the ashram was practically it had no trees and is to get really really hot during the summer seasons. Like the temperatures used to be more than the city, and even though the ashram is located on the outskirts. So the foundation took it upon itself for afforestation of that region, and today proudly we can say that the ashram has during the summers has a temperature at least 3 to 4 degrees lesser than what the main Coimbatore city experiences during summer. And after Project Green Hands, the next big movement that came along in 2017 was Rally for Rivers, where it was India centric, and over 162 million people extended their support for the movement. And Sadhguru rode from Kanyakumari all the way to Delhi, which is the nation's capital, and presented a river revitalization policy to the government, a 700-page document detailing exactly what needs to be done. And it is also very much in line uh, with the policies that Safe Soil is talking about. It's like all of these things fit. It's like a cog in the machine. The bigger machine being Conscious Planet, Rally for Rivers, after which came Kaveri Calling. It was a more geographically based. It's in Kaveri Basin is the basin of a river called Kaveri in southern India, and Sadhguru took it upon Kaveri Calling as a model or like a case. I'd say like a pilot project to show what these river policies can do. And one of the main aspects was agroforestry and improving farmer incomes, because it goes without saying, if we do not have economic stability amongst our farmers, for them farming is not a lucrative option anymore. So with the help of Kaveri Callings policies, there in a period of 5 to 7 years, we have witnessed an increase in farmers' income by 300 to 800%, which is a lot. And so that was very geographically, I'd say, restricted to only the southern part of India. And finally, with Conscious Planet, we are taking our environmental efforts global. And yeah, so as you've been asking about the impact it has in the locally the greater Coimbatore region, is that there's been a lot of afforestation drives. We've gotten roughly around 125,000 farmers to adopt agroforestry, which is a more sustainable form of farming and also provides better incomes for the farmers. And in general, the people since in the vicinity of the ashram and the foundation, I think they understand the imminent crisis that we are about to face and what's the problem and what the solution is. So I think I say that is a success until now, but we cannot be complacent and stop only at this. There's more to be done.
Of course, of course. Moving on, I would like to ask, like, we have seen how Sadhguru is on a journey to inspire people and spread awareness about the Safe Soil movement all over Europe right now. And he's trying to implement policies in all the countries, and several countries are coming out and supporting the movement. Like we can see Germany and several other Gulf countries also. So, how crucial it is in from the point of government policies and what the current scenario is on the safe soil movement, if you can like reflect on that as well. Also, one
Right.
more thing, you guys have met Ishan and Ritvika. I would like to welcome Laksh and Sivapriya also. Is a representative from Eco Youth, and Sivapriya is both of them are year one experienced students, undergrad. So yeah, we can start with the discussion now.
So Yash, Just to give you a glimpse of what is happening right now, adding to what Ishan already said, Sadhguru has started his journey on the spring equinox from London, 21st March, and now he's, like Ritvika said, in Belgium. So he's traveled through Europe, and he'll be moving to the Gulf about in May. So already, just with this short span of time, we have signed MOUs with 6 Caribbean nations. We have signed an MOU with the 4 per thousand initiative, which is a very, very popular and successful initiative by the French government. And there are talks, very, very positive talks happening with some UN agencies. And so, yes, there's a lot of excitement, and there's a lot of things happening already just in this short span of time since the movement has kicked off. So, if you look at it in the bigger scale, what we can do if we keep this fire going, if we keep talking about soil, if we give confidence to governments to affect policy change, that is something that is what we're trying to achieve here. So let's just open it up to the panel. I think we have some points of discussion.
So, Laksh, would you like to go first?
Yes, so hi everyone. Thank you so much, Yash and Ritvika, for this amazing presentation. Let us admit that you guys are shedding light on a problem that not everyone is aware of, and it's a very serious problem. So we have talked about the problem, and can we now shed more light on what practical solutions can be implemented now and now itself?
Right. Can I take that?
Yeah.
So, yes. So, Laksh, the definitive policies, as in specific policies, would only come with geographic area and location. So there is no blanket policy or kind of, what do you say? There is no understanding that we have the same set of what do you say, measures for every country globally. It will be country specific, it would be geographic specific, but the point is that soil is what binds us all. Soil is the common problem, and how we approach it is the only thing that will be different. We want to make sure that the fact that we approach it is very clear. So the how of it and the details of it would be very specific to each government in each geographic location. So it wouldn't be possible for us to discuss all of it in this really short span of time that we have here. But the underlying thing is that we talk about soil and we affect change in soil policies across the globe.
I think to answer your question from a slightly different perspective, I think we didn't get enough time to elaborate on that. Was what we can do is, so there's also a parallel move, a sub offshoot of safe soil been happening in India, which is known as the 10M to PM. So it basically means 10 million letters to the Prime Minister. Sadhguru has requested kids under the ages of 18 to write a letter to the Prime Minister to urging him to bring about lasting policy changes. So kids under 18, they don't have a vote, but they do have the voice. And in a democracy, I think that those two go hand in hand. So for now, while we are young, we can still, right now we are, all of you here are definitely adults, but for if there's anyone over there who wants to, if you're in India and you want to, and you're below 18, you can write a letter to the Prime Minister telling him why this needs to be addressed right now. And for the rest of us, we can express a concern on social media, like I've mentioned before. So I think that's how we can take it forward from here.
Sivapriya, would you like to share your thoughts on the government policies and the current affairs that is going around the safe side movement?
Yeah, I'll begin with the government policies are required at the national level because it's not something solvable at the individual level. See, as individuals, what best we can do is come together as and understand what a unity, like always in India we've been highlighting the fact that unity is one of the main goal. When you approach any religion, it tells about unity. I don't think any country around the world will speak about without unity there's nothing. You cannot. United we stand, divided we fall. That's where we come from, and that is what is the campaign trying to address, is what I believe, from Safe Soil movement, to bring in all the people together, pool in the resources, because how much I have or how much you have is not what all of us together can do to present to the government the seriousness of this issue, so that the actions can be taken on it. Because policies at the national level, each country is different, each region is different. What is acceptable in today in this part of the world cannot be acceptable, because the soil textures are different, the compositions, the materials, and the climatic conditions, every. And we have understood that from climate change, the globe is gone heating up, and they're like erratic rainfalls you're having in different places, and some places are just with drought. So how do you address all of this? And the fundamental of all of this is, if you address the soil issue, you can address many things, because our basically our nature is circular. What comes from soil goes back to soil. And if you realize this fundamental fact and make it understand to the government and have policies at the national level, I think one, not only solving this soil crisis but also trying to solve many other issues, from climate change, the migration, then heating up temperatures, then you're saving so many life forms on in which live in the soil, the microbial life forms, and that is all what I can say about it now.
Just
Yeah.
to add a bit onto what Sivapriya just said, the soil policies, these are irrespective of what ideology you believe in, what race you belong to, what's your religion, what's your caste, what's your gender, what's your color. These distinctions or identities do not come into play when we're talking about something like soil. This is a common factor for all of us. And definitely, we'd love to see it in the, like I mentioned before, the manifestos of political parties, irrespective of what ideology they believe in, because food is something that everyone needs, whether you're left or you're right or center. That doesn't matter. Yeah, I think that's what I'd say.
We have there's one question from one of the viewers. So if any one of you guys can take this up, it would be really good. So the viewer is asking, do you think that knowing 1 minute's worth of soil knowledge will really help in the campaign to save soil? Couldn't this cause the spread of misinformation? People may assume things. So if you would like to address this question.
So,
uh
okay,
yeah,
yeah,
sorry,
please
sorry,
go
go
ahead.
ahead, go
Please go
ahead.
ahead.
Ritika, you can go ahead first.
Okay.
Who can?
I don't think there's much, like, I don't think you can go wrong when talking about soil, because there's a lot of facts that have been released by, as mentioned in the presentation, by UN agencies. And also, I don't think there are many places where you can go wrong about soil. It's just, stating the issue and figuring out a solution for it. So, yeah.
Vaibhav, do you want to add on to that, or Ishan, or any one of the panel members?
Yeah, it's just so whatever it is that is your form of expression, right? Whoever you are, whatever you may be doing, you should be able to talk about soil for at least 1 minute, because there is it's really like because it's very difficult to go wrong about what is happening to a soil. And so, however you can say it through your art, please do it through your art, through your music, through your dance, through your words. But just make sure that we talk about soil at least for the next 100 days. Let's talk about soil every single day for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. This will make it happen.
Absolutely. We also have one more question. The viewer is asking, being in agriculture, I do not see enough talk with farmers on safe soil and see more talk with influencers. What is your take on this? Even in the local Coimbatore region, very few farmers are talking.
This is an
So,
excellent question. Can I'd like to take it.
obviously,
So,
right.
um, very good question. But I'm asking you, do you think if we approached a farmer who is barely able to make his ends meet, and he's able to just eat his food, he is thinking about survival. He's not thinking about global warming. He's not thinking about the soil going extinct. He's thinking about how is he going to make his next day. How do we approach somebody like that and tell them save soil? we can't we can't do that. That is inhumane. That is just that is not nice to do. So we want to affect those people who can reach a lot of people, and it'll trickle down. The effect of that will trickle down. But approaching a farmer and directly getting them to do something would not be the most effective way, mostly because they are also in quite a situation.
Sivapriya, would you like to add on to what Vaibhav mentioned right now about the question?
Yeah. Yeah, so if we've seen, we are in India still a developing country, and agriculture is a basis of a lot of revenue, and farmers are totally dependent on it. And when farmers are in themselves getting exploited on what is happening with agriculture, how do you go and convey to them that you have to save soil? That's not which is going to get into their heads, because fundamental basic human need to survive and feed their families and themselves and to be alive. We are all in the world of survival of the fittest. Unless you manage today, but what's going to happen tomorrow or the next minute for that matter, who knows? So when we are in such a dilemma, it's not going to be happening something from, I don't see it from that perspective of approaching farmers. Rather, if you go to institutions or organizations for that matter who have the resources and who actually can support them, guide the farmers on how they should approach these methods of sustainable agriculture, agroforestry, or precision farming. It's not about speaking. They have the resources. Government has, organizations have, who can practice CSR through and get into the safe soil movement and actually help these farmers out to come out and change their mindset. Because changing mindset is not something which happens overnight. It takes a considerable amount of time, and to achieve that, you require resources and support of people actually can support you. It's not because money is a fundamental factor for the farmer, but it's not for the it's not a thinking factor for government or organizations, and that's the reason the approach has been taken from that way.
Absolutely. So you mentioned about the money factor and the organization and the government. So how can we implement the CSR, that is the corporate social responsibilities that organizations have to take up, and correlate that with the Safe Soil movement? And how can organization contribute in terms of CSR to the movement? So Laksh, would you like to go on?
Right. So we talked about how government policies can help the movement, and now as business students, we would like to talk about CSR, corporate social responsibility. So in almost every country, like in India, for the companies with a certain net worth, they have to give 2% of the average net profits to CSR activities. The UAE Council of Ministers issued a resolution concerning CSR, which came into force on 1st February 2018. It imposes reporting requirements on contributions made to CSR activities, which will apply to many companies in the UAE on a mandatory basis. So we see how, let us emphasize on how CSR can help this movement. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Sivapriya or anyone from the panel, would you like to add on to that, or can we take
Yeah.
another question?
So as I think as a part of CSR, because companies, it's not something from a voluntary basis, it's being made into a law because they see a growing need and importance to support it. It's not just philanthropy is really good, but it has become a need of the hour, because to eliminate poverty and to bridge many issues for that matter in society. So for that matter, I see it from this perspective, like organizations as a part of CSR can join hands in the safe soil movement, because many organizations coming together, and some of these organizations are multinational companies who have presence worldwide, and we are not this is not something limited to a particular country, say for that matter India or UAE. We just mentioned two countries as an example. It's worldwide campaign, so every company they have reach. So when all of them come together, and organizations naturally can emphasize the government, influence the government more to make policies. So I see it from that perspective. They come and also influence besides the common man. It would have more weight to the campaign and bring positive results, which we all want, because soil is an essential resource without which none of us can survive in the near future.
Yeah, I totally agree to that. And we have another question from one of the viewers. So they say sometimes saying, just a second here, sometimes they're saying people to become an earth buddy or say soil feels green. So how convenient it is, I guess. How to convey it better, how to convey it better about the movement. So, would Ritvika, would you like to go?
Yeah, I'll take this question. Okay, so I don't, it really depends on everyone's opinion what to find cringe and what not to find cringe. I mean, it's completely fine. But the thing is, this movement is about spreading awareness and spreading this information to other people. And you can do it in any way you want, whether it's to become an earth buddy or to talk about soil for 1 minute or to show Sadhguru's video in any way you want. So it doesn't really matter. That's at least what I
Just to
think.
add on, um, I this is a very nice question that you asked, because we'd like you to find the coolest possible way to say save soil. Not just say it, just I'd like you to think about how to tell people without making it cringe, because it's possible. We're doing it. We've been doing it, and people haven't been cringing. So uh, really, if you feel like there is a way to communicate save soil or become an earth buddy or let's do this, let's make it happen in a less cringe way, please get to us. Please get back to us.
And I think to not for you, maybe it sounds cringe, and that's your opinion. That's completely fine. But I'd say to not sound cringe. Personally, I feel if you when you're talking about it with people, make sure you bring about the gravity of the situation. When we do not bring about the gravity of the situation, that's when we can talk about think about something in a different angle. If you really make it a point to the person that you're talking about that, okay, this is something real, it's happening right now, we got to fix this like immediately. This is not a point in time where we can be afford to be bystanders and just look at things happening. So I think we need to bring out the gravity of the situation, and I think that answers your question pretty much. Yeah.
I also think it will answer their question pretty much. So apart from that, I would like to just you are now coming at the closing end. So I would like to ask each one of you guys like what I as an individual can do to show my support to contribute towards the Safe Soil movement. So would Ishan, would you like to go first?
So another unique way how you could do that. I mean, this may be a very specific, but that's something I did a couple of weeks ago. So with a friend and his mom, we went to this farmers market. It's in Bandra, and we spoke to the farmers about the safe soil movement. And for them, it's not something. This is like, okay, this is something new, and we've been learning it. Like for and that farmers market, they only sell organic produce. So they already understand, and in a much deeper way, about what the soil is, what we need to provide the soil for it to uh, sustain itself and replenish itself again. And we have spoken to them, and in a couple of weeks, we are planning to do some sort of convention where we get them together and make some content and get them to speak about what they feel, their 2 cents on this movement. And because farmers at the end of the day, they are the first stakeholders. They're the first line of stakeholders in this whole process. So for them to be part of this movement, it's very essential that they show their support and let them tell us how we can improve this, because they have had more field experience. All of us here, we're just school students, university students, and we're on a YouTube live, but we have none of us have, I don't think, have ever been on the fields and done some real work. So having their support and having their views on it, I think that's very important. So maybe you can reach out to these kind of people more. So I think there was a question how there's a lot of more celebrities and influencers involved than the actual stakeholders. So maybe that's one thing you can take up. You can go around to your local farmers and speak to them about what this is and see what they say.
Absolutely. The importance of farmers, I don't think like many people understand, but they are one of the most important stakeholders for this movement as well, and also for the overall country, for everything. So I would like to ask Sivapriya, would you like to mention like what, again, the same question, what I, as an individual, what I can do to support the movement?
Okay. To answer that question, yes, not on, I would ask all the panelists and even the audience to reflect on this one point. Recollect, when was the last time you were barefoot and touched the Mother Earth and felt the rich soil below you? Did you just feel the sand, or dust, or was it more to it? Was there water, or was it slippery? Did you ever even have this experience of touching it? I think this recollection and a fundamental question which we ask ourselves will give us the answer to it. And another thing, what I can say is when we have an answer to it, just speak rather than keeping silent. It's something a positive moment we are keeping it. We can There's a Safe Soil song which was already played. You can use the song, create reels, circulate it on your Instagram and your social media platforms, use the hashtag Safe Soil, and let this movement keep going on and have more involvement. Thank you.
Absolutely, very strong words, Sivapriya. And we have seen the power of digital media for several movements like Black Lives Matter or Me Too movement, and the same can happen with the Save Soil movement as well. So, Ritvika, would you like to go ahead and share your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, as a school, and when I was in school, we've actually, even now, we've been spreading the awareness by going to different schools and presenting to them, mainly kids in like 8th, ninth, and 10th. And the response has been amazing. You know, whether it's we involve them by doing the jig or just presenting, and as Ishan has mentioned, the 10 a.m. to p.m. letters, they've all really responded well and they've gotten back to us with the letters. So I feel that we can all contribute to this by spreading awareness. It can be through social media, as people have mentioned, and it can also be through like going to different institutions, maybe to maybe a company at where your parents work, or it could be to different schools, or I'd previously gone to an old age home also, so you could just go and talk about soil to the people there just to spread awareness. And if you need resources also, please contact us, because we have plenty of resources. There's enough on the website also for you to know about soil and for you to talk about soil for 1 minute. So yeah.
Absolutely. The power of collaboration for any cause or any good cause is really very strong. I totally agree to that. Laksh, would you like to mention like what you think as an individual, what we can do?
Yes, yes. So for our age group, especially, I don't think we have an option of not contributing to this because it's about our future and our survival in the future, right? So there are a lot many ways in which you, as an individual, can contribute. One small method I would like to propose here is home composting. Home composting is a manner in which you can put in very minimum effort but create a big impact. So that's about it.
Yeah, of course, of course. And there are several resources that we can find online that will guide us on how we can do home composting. And there will be, I'm sure, like if you can look out for some organizations that can do composting for you, if you can collect the waste from your society, from your locality, and give it to them, and they can also do that for you. Vaibhav, would you like to mention something as a closing note, or would you like to contribute? Would you like to add to the points?
Right. So I just want to mention a couple of things. One is that this movement is a purely positive movement. And so we are not against anybody or anything. Or we are not against an oil company or a fertilizer company. Nothing like that. This is just us coming together as a planet to save the only thing that's keeping us alive. That is one thing. Secondly, for those of you, especially like this question, what can we as youth do to contribute? I think the biggest thing is just making noise about it. If you really want to do something, just speak about soil every single day. Make sure that you speak about soil on your social media. And how social media works is it expands at a exponential rate, right? So one tweet or let's say one hashtag, it catches a lot of attention. So this is the best way to contribute. And yeah, just a closing note, we'd really like to thank SPJN again for this wonderful opportunity to reach out to all of you everywhere. So thank you. And let's make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this was a wonderful session. I hope we were able to spread awareness about the Save Soil movement, and from here on, everyone, all the people who are viewing this, who are watching this video, and even after the live session, I would really request you to go on digital media, on Instagram, explore pages that are talking about, that are spreading awareness about the Save Soil movement, and even if you can repost it on your stories, it will really, as Vaibhav mentioned, it's an exponential process. So people will get to know about the movement, people will start talking about it, and that is one of the very main goals that we are trying to promote. So wonderful. I think this was a wonderful session. Thank you so much, Ishan, Ritvika and Vaibhav to join us. I would really like to thank the Isha Home School for this collaboration.
Thank you
Without
so
you
much.
guys, it wouldn't be possible.
And Yash, just like one thing, as you're talking about what we can do after this session, because this is not the end of it. This is just the beginning.
Obviously, this is just a
If
start.
you want to really get an in-depth idea, there's this really nice documentary called Kiss the Ground. There's a 45-minute version of it available on the Conscious Planet website. I think, Yash, you can share it with the team. And if you want to watch the full version, please go ahead to Netflix, search up Kiss the Ground. It's a really nice documentary, really lets you in, and it's also a very nice visual treat, and it really helps you sink in what the issue is all about. So I think that's all for today. And thank you so much to SP Jain, Yash, Laksh, and Sivapriya for putting everyone together. Thank you so much. It's been.
Of course.
Let us make it happen.
Let's make it happen. Yes,
Let us
let's
make
make
it
it
happen.